Hi, my name is Toshi Asaka. I'm the founder of Meishinryu Aiki Jujutsu. Today, I'd like to introduce about what is Aiki. Aiki is kind of mysterious term of martial arts, especially in Japanese, and it's based on Aikido. It comes from Aiki, but many people talk about Aiki, but let's say the question is, what is exactly Aiki? And there's so many definitions about Aiki, and I'd like to talk about what kind of Aiki I use in my style. So that everybody has a different definitions of Aiki, and that I appreciate that. And I don't say they are wrong or they are right. That's their definition of Aiki, and I have different definitions of Aiki in my Meishinryu. My Aiki is coming from the Okamoto Seigo sensei, who is a great master of Daitoryu Aiki Jujutsu. And also I have a kind of flavor of Aiki from Abe Seiseki sensei, who is one of the best students. He got 10th degree of black belt from the founder Ueshiba Morihei of Aikido. So because the Abe sensei is actually the sensei of Stephen Segal, and that's where my Aikido comes from. So my Meishinryu is a combination of the Stephen Segal's Aikido and Aiki of Daitoryu of Okamoto sensei. This is my combination of my style. Let's talk about what is Aiki is. Aiki is actually a technique in Daitoryu, which mostly many people say in the history, but I would say the founder of the Daitoryu, Takeda Sokaku, who actually used this technique he called it Aiki. So Aiki is a technique. It's not like a chi or ki power or breathing or feeling. It is a technique. So it's the same thing like kotegaishi or samazu shihou nage in Aikido. Of course, Ueshiba is a student of the Takeda Sokaku, so when he learned his basic fundamentals of the Jujutsu from Sokaku, and he also learned Aiki as a technique, but when Ueshiba Morihei converted that Aiki technique to more based on Kokyu, which is breathing, and more like he changed the term Aiki from the technique to the philosophy. So it's kind of strange to say, but in Aikido there is no Aiki as a technique. In Aikido, Aiki is more like a philosophy. It's like the way of the harmony. Aikido. It's Aiki, the way of Aiki. So the Ueshiba said Aiki is the harmony, to create the friendship, a relationship, a connection. So that's the he changed Aiki from technique to the philosophy, which is very good because many traditional Japanese martial arts, especially Kobujutsu, is very based on the combat skills coming from the samurai period. So it's like how you can kill people or how you can destroy people. So there was no philosophy for many years. So when Ueshiba found Aikido, he changed that and he put the philosophy and he called it Aiki. So in Aikido, it's kind of strange things to say. In Aikido, there is no Aiki as a technique. In Aikido, Aiki is more like a philosophy. So, however, and the technique, Aiki as a technique still survived in Daitoryu, which I studied from Okamoto sensei. So many people think it's like when you saw somebody, like by just touching or even sometimes if there is no touching. Like when you see the Wishiba's videos or my sensei's video, my Okamoto sensei's video, they throw the people just looks like a very light touch, or like you can feel, kind of feel like a flow of the motion and stuff like that. But however, it's not like you using the float or circular motion, to throw somebody or make the enemy off balance. That's not really it. It's of course we have Aiki is a technique, so there's the point that you use some timing or flow motion to make him off balance. But when you throw somebody with Aiki technique, which is not like key power or breathing, it is actually the technique when you study and you can actually use it. It's not like you have to spend like decades of training years so you can finally, or if you're lucky, you can get it. It's not like that. Aiki is a technique. So if you know the correct way and the principle of Aiki, you can use it. In fact, I teach this Aiki technique to some medical people, some of the doctor, physical therapists, because you can use Aiki technique. It's not just a throwing person. Actually, you can use this for like the medical care support. Like when care service person, try to bring the patient up or rotate the patient. It's always a lot of physical works, but if I use this Aiki technique, I can actually turn the patient, turn around to the other side, or pick them up by just using the touching Aiki. This is already working. Many people think, oh, you can't throw just the person by just hand. Actually, if you can, I'm showing some video right now. It's a technique that actually evolved for the human body reaction. If you touch something, but there's some trigger to use to move the other person's muscle. So if I touch somebody, then I can actually easily to rotate or let him stand up, get up, or like that. So I'm using this technique and I'm teaching them. They are not actually I teach at this moment three doctors, and two of them are actually also they're martial artists. But one person is not a martial artist. He have never done any kind of martial arts, even judo. As a Japanese. So he is absolutely beginner. He knows nothing about martial arts, but he can still use this technique, and you can actually control the patient. So if you learn this technique correctly, you can actually use it. Of course, it's like it's like swinging the baseball bat. If you know how to swing the baseball bat, now you can hit the ball. But it's all of course it's all depend on how much you train you are to get how much you get better. Which means maybe you can throw very slow ball, like maybe like 20-30 miles speed of the ball, you can hit it. But if you want to hit the professional baseball player's ball, then you need to practice, because it's not just the fast and how it's fast, but it's also like the professional people, they throw low, upper, lower, they sometimes use the carb or any kind of changing ball. So it's, yes, you can use it, but to get the better, of course you have to practice. But the very important thing is what the principle is, how you can train it. This is my style, and this is how I teach in my Meishinryu, to teach how you can use this technique, because this is very wonderful things, because when you see some videos, like especially old classic Japanese martial artist video, including Vishwa Morihei, Omai Sensei, Okamoto Sensei, or some other masters, they sometimes be throwing people by just touching. And like even the Mifune, the judo master, he throw people very easy, and many people think, oh, that's fake. But it's not actually fake. You have to believe it, because these things exist. When you think just only when you throw somebody, you have to use the physical muscle to throw, or you have to do certain kind of kuzushi motion. No, actually, there's so many ways to actually throw the person, and Aiki is one of the way. So, like for example, you can actually try this. It's very easy to feel what is Aiki is, and this is not everything. This is just a part of the Aiki technique. I use this, and one of the principle. Like if you can't do it by yourself. You need somebody around. Let's say if you let's the other person's hand like this, and if you use hand, rotate like this, like kind of like rotating over the other side of your hand, and rotate it. As you rotate, you kind of keep pushing the palms. Then automatically your hands just start grabbing the person's hand, automatically grabbing your hands like this. This is counter-reflection. It's kind of designed in your human body, or you actually design when you grown up. It's when you grab something like this, when you feel the pressure, you automatically grab your ball or whatever. So this is already designed, or even maybe it's already designed in your human DNA, or it's already designed. You design it because it's more convenient, because you don't want to keep it ordering your hands. Grab. That's too much work for your brain. So it just, when you feel something, your hand just automatically grab. Use this kind of technique to control the person. This is like some of one of the examples that you can try, and you can feel. And if you extend this technique to more advanced, then you can actually throw somebody by just touching or hand grabbing. So this is the Aiki technique. Aiki is very fundamental things, very key technique for Meishinryu style. So when you join it, I really love to teach, how you can learn this technique and try and apply to your martial arts. I'm not saying this is the best technique in the world, but you can apply this technique to anything, not just the martial arts world, but like what I'm doing right now is, extending this technique to more like medical care world. So I believe because this technique can help, more people, because I can actually move somebody's hands. Let's say right now what we are trying to do is, if there's a patient who is already weakened, it's very rare muscles, so he doesn't have a part of muscle, even with muscle, or maybe his nerve is already kind of half damaged, he can't move. But if you do nothing, it just muscle getting weaker and weaker, and eventually he can't move it, or somebody is already not be able to move it, their hand or any part. But this Aiki technique actually gives the stimulus to move the hand, so without his will. So which means not just the physical care, but also it's gonna be the muscle training as well for the patient. I have a student from Russia. He is the doctor in the brain field, so he is also learning this technique so he has lots of patients who has a problem with some nerve system, nerve breakdown. And there's one example that my sensei, Okamoto sensei, who is my sensei, he had a student who is really disabled in the lower body. He is in a wheelchair, but he trained him, and he also trained his other friend to train to the Aiki to the wheelchair guy. So eventually, when he was taking the many techniques, so his muscle will start moving without his will, because his nerve system is breaking down. But for many years, actually, because he's getting lots of stimulus to move the muscle, he actually getting the actual sense, the feelings. And eventually, later, there's a small part of muscle, but he could start, he could start moving it. So which means his nerve system is recovering. So there's lots of potential to do that. So I really try to help this, Aiki to the medical world. So I wish this Aiki technique can help many more people in the world. But of course, you can apply this technique to the martial arts. No, you don't have to be a Jujutsu style or my style. Anybody. I have lots of students who does judo or karate or some other kempo, so they can actually study this and apply it to their martial arts field. Actually, it's very funny because I have a student who really, he's the soccer player, football player, and he actually used this Aiki technique for his football field. So there's lots of potential to learn Aiki. Of course, my Aiki is just half of the martial arts principle. The other half is the Aikido, which is, I say in my style, it's a Jujutsu coming from Steven Segal, which is very practical. So when you study, my style, it's just you study the very practical martial arts, which is designed by Steven Segal, and you know how it's practical when you see his videos, And also you can also study about this guy, Aiki as well, because many martial artists, especially Aikido, but not just Aikido, but many martial artists, when they're getting older, they lose the physical strength. The muscle is getting weaker. Then at certain point, when you're younger, it's fine. You can just train yourself very hard, get the muscle, and you can put your technique based on your muscle, which is fine because where you are used, and that's your strength. There's nothing wrong to use it. But eventually, later, everybody is getting old, which means your muscle is getting weaker and weaker. And at a certain point, you wanna start training this, not your technique, not based on your muscle, or not based on your physical strength. And so, but let's say when you are physically good in condition, you are very strong up around the 60s, then, but in the middle of the 60s, when you're getting weaker, you have only 10, 20 years of pursuit about the technique, which is not based on the muscle. But when we are practicing both together, so when you are physically good, you can practice the Jujutsu and the Steven Segal's Jujutsu, and also at the same time, we practice this Aiki technique, which is not based on the muscle. So you can feel the balance when maybe you can start with the Jujutsu more and the Aiki less. When you're getting older, maybe put the Jujutsu part less and put the Aiki part more. So you can keep your strengths in a certain level, which is very nice things, I believe. So I'm still young, so I can't tell, when I get old, I can use it a lot. But my sensei, when I joined, he was already over 80s, and he saw me so hard. Sometimes people think Aiki is like a soft technique, but hell, it's not. It's very powerful technique. And he's already 80s. And also when I practiced with Abe Sensei, he was almost 90s, and he threw me so hard. So Aiki is not based on the muscle. Of course, their physical strength is very good, but it's not really based on the muscle. It's not based on how much push-up you do. It's a technique that you can use it, not based on your muscle. So if you are interested in, please join. Meishinryu style. I kind of designed this, so I hope many people would enjoy this technique. Thank you.